It's beautiful to be here. Like David mentioned, I do help the SMCC. And if you want to learn more about the SMCC, guys, please stay at the end. We will have a little combo on what is the Sauder Management Consulting Club and what are the activities that we do there. Alan here is also part of the SMCC or flaming president. Okay, cool. So I do have a presentation that I want to share that by no means I pretend to follow. So let me just get you guys started here. And I wonder if I just start the presentation here, if this is going to work. Does this work? Do you guys are seeing the right screen?
Looks good.
Beautiful. So boutique consulting, it's an interesting topic. It's a one that I gotta say a lot of people kind of like misplace, or they don't think what the first thought that you get in your mind on when you think consulting, it's MBB really. If you are in at least on an academic area like us, where we are in either a master's or undergrads, or we are somewhat related to university, because MBB recruits a lot from university. But before we get into that, I want to kind of like getting to know the audience already. We got a couple of people here that I want to get to know a little bit more. What's your involvement in consulting? What brought you here? Since we got a very neat group here, I want to keep this very conversational. So by no means expect me to talk all the time. I want to hear you guys. So yeah, just open floor, guys. What's kind of like your interest in consulting, and what brought you here today?
I can start. So yeah, I'm Siham, and I'm currently doing the Master of Engineering Leadership in Clean Energy Engineering. So
Beautiful.
I don't have, like, my background is in engineering, not business. But what got me really interested in consulting is the business courses we're taking as part of our master's program. Been enjoying them. Although I've been doing project management for the past 10 years, I haven't done any consulting, but like, I think that's what I want to do after finishing my program. So yeah.
Awesome. That's amazing. That's amazing. Any particular subject or course on the business side that you liked?
Yeah, I like the strategy and innovation.
Beautiful.
So yeah.
Beautiful.
And we've
Thanks a lot.
Right.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. Yeah. I think that we'll speak about kind of like career paths and stuff like that in a bit here, but that's a very interesting one, like engineers. There is actually a lot of engineers that go into consulting. Okay, cool. Sonia, what about you?
Hi everyone. I'm doing my PhD in interdisciplinary oncology program. So I'm kind of wrapping up there. My background is mostly in cell biology, molecular biology. And so I really enjoy the problem solving aspect of my PhD. And I think consulting is all about problem solving. And so that's really where I derive my joy and why I wanted to do consulting. And I'm especially interested in healthcare consulting and also investment banking related to healthcare.
Awesome. Very interesting. I really want to know more about that. So I will ping you along the way to ask you some questions. Natasha, yes, we established that was the right way.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, similar to everyone else, actually. So I'm a fourth year UBC student studying chemistry right now. And then I have some co-op experience in chemical and pharmaceutical industries. And along the way, I grew interest more in the business or commercial side of industries. And then I look into consulting area, and then really interested about like how diverse and everyone is, and then how problem solving is the key thing. So I decided to join SMCC myself, and then I recently just joined SMCC as a marketing. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your help. I'm assuming you had something to do with this presentation. So this is a really interesting take, guys. Already, like we heard from Siham, Sonia, and Natasha, and you all come from different backgrounds, but consulting is kind of that unifying ground where we're all looking at consulting. And that's actually something that I want you guys to keep for a minute, because we're going to touch on that, on how consulting is bringing a lot of different backgrounds into one place. Do you have Rebecca still? I think I know Rebecca and I can speak for her. But if she's here, I do want to hear from her on what brought her today.
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Jose. Hi,
There
everyone.
you are.
Yes, so I'm a PMB student with Sauder as well, the same cohort as Jose and David. I work in corporate finance. I'm a financial analyst in a financial planning and analysis teams. I'm here because I know Jose works a lot with accountant, with finance. So I would always like to keep my options open. If I were to become a consultant down the road, I'm just curious to find out what kind of skill set, what kind of experience I can bring forward.
Beautiful. Awesome. Okay, thanks guys for sharing. And that's me getting to know you. Oh, we got Vanessa too. We're gonna put her, Vanessa, on the spot, and we're gonna ask her what's the answer to the question that we just asked while she was not here. No, just kidding, Vanessa. You're more than welcome. We just have a discussion on what's bringing us here and how we're approaching the consulting path. Okay, moving on then. So I got a little bit of an agenda. And these are the main 4 topics that I want to discuss with you guys today. A little bit of a deeper dive on what is it really boutique consulting, pros and cons, and the characteristics. And then we want to contextualize boutique consulting in the consulting spectrum. So when we say boutique, what are we differentiating boutique from? So as you can imagine, MBB is one of those, but there's a couple more things. I want to discuss a little bit more of what to expect in a day in the life of a consultant in boutique, and a little bit more about career paths and skill sets, and like we were just saying, what are the different areas or avenues that can get you into consulting. And just a preview there, it varies and it depends. Okay, so that being said, the only house cleaning rule moving forward is that there's no house cleaning rules. Everything it's up for grabs. So if you have any questions, shoot up, stop me mid-sentence, raise your hand using the Zoom function, start a fire, whatever cuts our attention, like you're free to go. Yeah, so and if you have any comment, by all means, I really want to enrich this with personal experience, or what you think about this, or if you want to challenge any of these assumptions that I have here in the screen today, by all means do so. Okay, so that being said, just a little bit of intro on me and my path to consulting. David mentioned a little bit of, I'm working with the SMCC, I work for Entreflow, so let's start there. Entreflow, it's a boutique consulting firm that specializes in 2 functional areas. One is finance, the other one is human resources. And we work mostly with startups in the North American market. So if you are a new company that is looking to grow and you need help setting up your financial function or HR function, recruitment, raising funds for or equity or debt, like we help with that stuff. And also systems. We do systems for all that stuff. Oh, wow, I sound like a true salesman. So that's Entreflow. And how I got to consulting, really, it's that I started working in management consulting, more in the strategy and leadership development back in Argentina when I was finishing my undergrad. I exited a couple of startups that I have in South America, and I went into consulting because I got headhunted. Like the owner of this boutique firm in Argentina called Metanoia look at me because of my experience with this startup and say, Jose, I want you to come work with me on this consulting firm. And we did a lot of like leadership development, HR related things. And I started more of the strategy practice on that firm. And then I decided to get married and move to Vancouver. So that's in the past now. But nowadays I work again more in finance and HR functions, which is something that it's interesting because a lot of the conception of consulting is a strategy consulting, which is MBB. It's, you think about like, oh, I'm going to talk with the CEO and we're going to think about their big picture problems type of thing, which is mostly true. But we're going to get into a little bit of how that tends to specialize in different functions and areas or industries, and how boutique consulting is actually the solution, or not the solution, but the result of that specialization. Okay, so that being said, that's me. Other than that, I moved here, 6 years ago, and I share a cohort with Rebecca and David. We're navigating our PMBA together and going through life. I'm also expecting my first kid, which I have an urge to say every time I can, because I'm extremely happy of that. And that's coming in July, if anybody wants to know. I don't know if that's information that you needed. So thanks for the celebrations. I appreciate it. A little bit more about boutique consulting. So the 4 areas, and this is by no means taxative or the only way to look at boutique consulting. The reality is that all of the kind of like MBB, first tier, second tier consulting, it's all very much subjective. There's no formal classification of consulting firms besides maybe functional areas or geographies. But a couple of things. The first things that you got to know about boutique consulting is that it's normally specialized. So in contrast to MBB, for example, or Big Four, there are international companies serving a wider range of geographies and markets. Boutique consulting tends to be specialized in either an industry, a function, or a geography. So that means, for example, I did tell you about Entreflow, the place that I work. We specialize on a function, which is finance and HR, on an industry, which is technology, and a geography, which is North America. So the reach is smaller, and that's gonna come up in a couple of the kind of like balancing acts that you have in boutique. But this is also highly affecting the career paths that you might have in boutique, and the career entries and career exits of boutique. So the next one, the smaller teams, and you can at any given point congratulate me on my PowerPoint skills here. The appearing act of the blocks took me an hour and a half or so. So smaller teams, like as you can imagine, when you look at MBB on one end of the spectrum, you have, I think, Boston Consulting Group, 6,000 people, and McKinsey's over 15,000 people. On the boutiques side, you're looking at very small firms. You're looking at somewhere in the probably 10 to 50 people in most cases. Some specialized firms tend to go a little bit bigger than that, mainly if they have a functional specialization. For example, if they do engineering consulting or healthcare consulting, for example, they will have bigger teams, but they're very, very specialized in their area. So the fact that you have a smaller teams takes you into the third block that we have, is that you wear many, many hats. I don't know how much you heard about the career path in MBB or strategy consulting, but it looks something like this. You do your bachelor's in commerce, and then you enter as a business analyst. If you didn't enter there, you do your MBA and you enter as an associate. After you are an associate for a couple of years, you become an engagement manager. And after you're an engagement manager for a few years, you become a partner. If at any given point you didn't enter on BA or associate, you're gonna have something like 15 to 20 years of experience in your industry to become a junior partner on that function. Let's say you are a senior executive on the mining, and you wanna go into consulting. Well, you're gonna bring your clients, you're gonna bring your Rolodex type of thing into MBB. So that means that you are always having just a one single focus, which is your projects that you're assigned, the problems that you're solving for your clients, and that's kind of it. On the boutique side, it's very much like a startup in a lot of senses. It's, you get to solve the issues that come as you go type of thing. So to give you an example, for a lot of our clients at Entreflow, we are by any means of the imagination, their business advisor. Even though we specialize in finance and HR, they trust us so much that if they need a legal solution, they will come asking us. So that means that you need to be really involved with your clients, really involved in understanding their business, and by no means become a lawyer, but you need to have the phone of a good lawyer, or the contact of how to reference them in the right direction. Actually, we were just chatting a bit early with a friend of us from the cohort who is a lawyer, and I was telling him, all I need in life is your phone number. It's not about how much you know, it's about who you know that knows what you need. But the fact that it's many hats is that you end up doing a little bit of consulting, a little bit of client care management, account executive, a little bit of project management. So things are a lot more fluid in boutique. It's not that rigid in terms of when your job starts and ends. Job descriptions are very much just a guideline, and you can go as much as you can. So the flip side of that coin is that on the one hand, you can do as much as you want. So if you want to take on more responsibility, like start working on a side project for a different client, nobody's going to stop you. Like this is all more than welcome. On the other hand, is that the structure is a lot more fluid. Like there's no 2 years in one position, you go to the next position, 2 years in that position, you go to the next position type of thing. So again, every characteristic is a pro and a con, depending, and this is a consultant's favorite answer, it depends. It depends on your personal situation and what you're really looking in life. But in a lot of cases, this is a very entrepreneurial driven type of situation where it depends on how much you want to get involved in different projects and in different areas in the firm. Work-life balance. This is one of my favorite ones to talk to, because I believe in work should be an essential part of your life. It's something that we do 8 hours a day, and the only thing that you do for that amount of time, hopefully, is sleeping. So you should really have a good integration of your work and your personal life, with clear boundaries if you need them, or with fluidity where you need it. But the common conception is that MBB firms, so McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, have no work-life balance. And for the most part, that's right in the classic sense of work-life balance. So normally these consulting firms are on a 5-2 schedule. So that means that you are flying to the client site 5 days a week. So you're sleeping on the client's hometown or home office, not on the office, you're sleeping in the hotel, of course. 5 nights a week, and then you come back on Fridays and you have 2 nights at home, and then you fly back to the client on Sunday night or Monday morning, depending on the clients, how far the clients are. Boutique is way different. So in my case, because we are geographically concentrated in North America, first of all, I don't need to travel that much. Second of all, nowadays we really embrace the working from home and remote working. So we are having most of our client engagements and most of our client meetings online through Zoom or Google Meets, and that really facilitated a lot how many clients you can take on a day. But also it really helped a lot with the fixed costs and a lot of the variable costs of consulting. I have a friend that works in McKinsey, and when all of this started, he told me that McKinsey was actually quite happy with the no flying to the client side, because they spend something like $1 billion a year in airfare for their consultants. So it's like, well, we look forward to saving $1 billion. So it's just that balancing act. On hours, it really depends. Like, depends on how many hats you're working. In my case, I normally work around 10 hours days. So, and that's very, very much on the upper limit of things for most of our consultants. we try, and I speak from Entreflow perspective, we try to balance that to the 8 hours and to have a good mix. But the truth is that we are always subject to the client's needs. So if you know anything about taxes, is that there is the so-called tax season. And because we do finance, January to April are very intense months where our clients need a lot of help. So those tend to be longer hours. In the summer, we tend to be a little bit more relaxed because everybody takes a break. So that's shorter hours. We try to balance it out as much as possible. And the truth is, you're always going to be in a constant state of balancing your client needs with your capabilities of delivering for those clients. In general, though, you will sleep most of the nights at home, which is a big pro if you have family. Like I'm expecting family, so that's why I really like my boutique consulting gig. And if you want to stay home, you don't like traveling abroad that much in hotels. But also there's something to be said and about having that kind of like globetrotter life where you have 1 week in each country working with different clients all the time. Okay, so that's my best exemplification about what boutique consulting is. Questions before we move on here? I see people is, Sonia, are you taking notes? Please don't quote me on any of this. Oh, she's probably just frozen. Okay. I was like, that's a very still. Okay, cool. So questions, I see no questions. Come free to move on. Beautiful. So this is the consulting spectrum that I was referring to when I initially presented on the agenda. And again, this is by no means an academic set of criteria to define different consulting firms and to classify different consulting firms. So let's start with the left-hand side, the one that everybody knows. That's MBB. That's your McKinsey, Bain, and BCG. These are your well-known strategic powerhouses. So all of these firms started as we are advisors to CEOs, we are advisors to the leadership team on how to navigate the business complexity, essentially. And they all been around for 100 or so years, or a little less in some cases like McKinsey. But they have a very similar pattern structure. And that is that you come out of the undergrad, you come out of the master's or your PhD as a associate, or you come up at the very top with a lot of industry experience being an exec in the industry. Out of these three firms, and just related to the local experience, I think McKinsey is the only one with Vancouver offices. Bain and BCG, they have Toronto offices, and then they are all over the States. The interesting thing that happened in the last probably 20 to 30 years in consulting is that consulting is starting to branch out. So where you originally had strategic consultants only, where your guys that come in and just meet on the board of directors with the CEO type of thing. Now you have a lot more functional areas in MBB. You have people that is doing digitalization, or people that is doing human resources or operation efficiencies. So you got a lot more functionally hands-on experience on MBB. And that's very much a client-driven tendency. So that means that we're already consulting you on the strategy, so we might as well help you on the operations. Let us hire the right talent to work on operations and expanding your workforce, branding, marketing. So there's a lot more functions that are now attached and they are under MBB. A very similar thing goes to B4. So the B4 is short for Big Four, and those are your typical audit firms. So these are our accounting-led firms. So you got Deloitte, EY, KPMG, and PwC. So they all started like audit firms where they were just doing audit for your taxes and making sure that your papers were in order for the CRA, for example, in Canada, IRS in the States. But they very much have a similar path to MBB in the fact that something like 20, 30 years ago, they saw the opportunity of saying, we are already working with all of your financials. We know your company up and down. We might as well advise you on all of the information that we have already. So they all have now consulting branches, and actually a couple of them actually bought consulting firms, like PwC bought Strategy and Deloitte actually bought Monitor, which is another consulting firm. So they play a little bit on the M&A side of things and acquire the capabilities, plus build on the capabilities. But as of, I think there was a study, a very interesting study in 2019 that was showing that, oh, that's not where I wanted to go, that Big Four's revenue, it's now 60% consulting, 40% audit and compliance. So now these newer business lines, let's call it, are actually bringing more money in than your actual compliance practice, which leads to a whole ethics dilemma on how we can audit something that we are consulting on. Like, I'm helping you build this organization. How can I be the one controlling that you're not doing anything illegal? And there's a whole split, and there's a few interesting cases in Europe, mainly on litigations there. But enough about that. So that's your Big Four. So a lot of people choose to go on Big Four for consulting. And again, very interesting in areas. You have a strategy, you have digitalization, you have project management, implementations of software, human resources and human capital, operations efficiencies. You got the whole spectrum there. Then there is, between the Big Four and the boutique consulting firms that I'm going to discuss in a bit, there is the second tier consulting that you can Google this and you will find a lot of these names. But these are kind of like the smaller brothers of and sisters of MBB. These are strategy focused. Normally they have one or two industry where they are really heavy on, or one or two geographies. For example, the strategy, and it's fairly big in Europe and Southeast Asia. And that's why PwC actually bought them. So they bought the clients and the partners on the firm. So this is another one. Again, these tend to be a bit smaller, except for Accenture, which is an outlier. Accenture does everything outsourcing essentially, but they have a consulting branch too. And Boost tend to be normally related as the third B on MBB. Boost is actually a fairly big strategy firm that tends to be regarded very closely to MBB. So that's your second tier, and normally these are 2,000 to 3,000 people companies. Some of these are on less than 1,000, but typically on the at least hundreds of people working for these firms. And then you get to boutique, and boutique, of course, like you can imagine, there's as many boutique consulting firms as there is consultants out there that want to do freelancing essentially. So I have a few names here in the screen that are some notable firms here in Vancouver that operate locally. Of course, Entreflow, and that's by no means self-promotion. You got Propel that specialize in colleague systems, Incrementa, which does more on business development and marketing, and Optis too. That they actually, Optis is one of the biggest one that it's fastly growing into other markets. Okay, so questions so far? You guys are awfully quiet. Like I'm starting to hear my own voice. And Sonia, welcome back.
So,
oh, David.
I'm curious, if you were to choose one of the MBB or Big Four, what would it be and why?
Interesting. So if I were to choose one of the MBB or Big Four, so one out of those 7, which one will I choose? I think because of my kind of like close relationship with a few employees, I will choose McKinsey. And I think that's a very typical answer for a lot of people, that McKinsey is the big one out of the MBB. But the fact that they have a Vancouver office also helps. Depending on what your career perspective, you got to start looking at those things. One thing that my career coach at here at UBC told me once, that it always stuck with me, was that there's three things that relating to changing careers. One is your function, the other one is your industry, and the third one is your geography. Changing one is tough. Changing two, it's really, really hard. Changing three at the same time is almost impossible. So you always gotta kind of like pick your battles. So I'm choosing not to change my geography for the time being. So I like McKinsey there, because Bain and BCG will mean that I need to relocate. So that's that, I guess. No, good questions. And I did a process with McKinsey, and I got friends in McKinsey. So again, I know a little bit more about McKinsey than I know the insights of Bain or BCG. And the other ones are all accounting firms, still in my mind. I know they do consulting, a lot of that, but I have a love-hate relationship with accounting firms, because I work in a place full of accountants, and I'm married to an accountant. So most of the day I love accounting. Other days I just want to strangle accountants. But that's just a little bit of cathartic moment for me there. Cool. Rebecca, Sonia, Vanessa, Siham, Natasha, any questions so far? No? Good? I take your silence. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So I know for MBB, they do a lot of, I guess, diverse hiring. So as they hire across different disciplines. How about boutique firms? Are they more, they have more specific requirements to who they hire?
Okay. So that's a very interesting question. And that's a very good insight on what's going on. And this is the diversification that we were talking about. MBB, Big Four, they diversify their functions portfolio. They're already all over the world, so they need to diversify geographically. Boutique itself, it's more on finding the right boutique firm for you. So like we were saying a couple of slides before, boutiques seem to be functionally specialized. So there's different boutique firms, normally on the smaller scale, that only do one certain function. For example, they only do marketing, or they only work in healthcare on trials, for example, in medical trials. But actually, I have a client, which is it's a consulting firm that they run medical trials for cannabis companies. So it's very specialized. So it's really about finding the right fit for where you want to develop. And where do you have the expertise or the education on? In general, there is, and I can speak from the Entreflow experience, there is some technical requirements, and we will see about more kind of like the career paths going into boutique in a bit. But I can tell you, as a hiring manager myself, we always look for attitude. Like we understand that in the functional areas, and this is something that I think all consulting firms are looking at, is do you have that entrepreneurial spirit? Do you have that can-do attitude? And are you curious and proactive enough to craft your own solutions and to reach out and collaborate with other people to find solutions to your clients' problems? So if you have that, my take is, at least on Entreflow, is that we can fill the technical gaps. I like, we normally say that we will hire anybody that has 70% of the knowledge, but 100% of the attitude. Like the 30% of the knowledge, it's something that you're never going to be a perfect fit. Like you're never going to have line by line all of the things that I want to do for my clients, because that will mean that you went through a very similar experience to what we are proposing. And because I tend to believe that consulting firms are very unique in their culture, it's going to be really hard. Like the systems that you use, probably even if you move from one consulting firm to the other, they will have different systems, they will have different cultures, they will have different processes. So it's really hard to find that technical perfect fit. So at least us in Entreflow, we look for that kind of like 70% technical fit, 100% attitude fit and cultural fit. Yeah, that's our take. I don't know if that helps in any way, shape, or form, Sonia.
A follow-up question?
100%, yeah.
So you mentioned that a lot of the times the exit opportunities from the big firms is the boutique firms. So I guess is then the point to develop those specific skill sets in the bigger firm and then transition into boutique firm at a higher level, but in a specific niche industry?
That's actually something that happens very often. And it's interesting enough. So you normally go from MBB, Big Four, into industry, but you can go to boutique consulting too. And why do people do that? So again, you have the big brand recognition of MBB and Big Four. But normally the driver to go away from MBB and Big Four is work-life balance. I got into this when I was in my 20s as a BA or as an associate. I ran it out for 6, 8, 10 years, whatever it was. Now I'm settling down. I'm starting a family. My needs on my personal side are way different. I don't want to be flying and be away from home for 5 days a week type of thing. And then you say, okay, boutique consulting. I still want to be doing consulting, but I just want to work from my local office or work from home or have remote clients and stuff like that, which is our case. Like we used to visit clients in the Lower Mainland a lot. And then we said, you know what, we are leaving everybody to work from home on how they feel safe and secure. But you know, that's a great take. So you develop all of that technical specialization on MBB, because that's the one thing. That's still the predominant career path on MBB. It's kind of like bachelor's or master's on PhD. You get into the mainstream consulting. It's worth noting that you also have a lot of different areas now in MBB. Like I was saying, you have like digitalization, you have marketing, you have operations efficiencies, you got project management. That like MBB does a lot more than just a strategy these days. So there is other kind of like roles that are not just I'm a consultant. So that's something worth noting, that there is other career paths than just the consulting career path. Although the consulting career path, it's predominantly the mainstream career path into MBB. But I absolutely see that as a possibility. We actually see a lot of people from MBB that goes into the startup world, and they started their own startups or their own consulting firms, which past clients from MBB, they kind of like remain engaged with 1 or 2 big clients, and then you just have a very, very balanced work life, but you still get to work with the big projects and stuff like that. So I absolutely see that as a possibility, kind of like doing the MBB and then coming into as a partner or more of a senior level or C-level person on the boutique side of things. Absolutely. No. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Sonia. Vanessa, you have your hands up.
Yeah, thanks, Jose. I'm just wondering, because I feel like in consulting, you always have to stand with the client. And then, I don't know, I'm imagining there's gotta be some kind of conflict sometimes, because you always have to, you know, maybe you think A is right, but they would prefer to do B. Like, I would imagine there would be some conflict, and how, I don't know, I feel like sometimes that could be a bit frustrating. Does that happen in your day-to-day work?
Well, the fact that you're the consultant, it's inherently that. Well, let me backtrack and I will get to the answer of that. And the answer to that is yes, it happens in my day-to-day. I think it happens to most consultants, where you don't get a lot of your ideas to see your ideas come to life. And at the end, you're an advisor. You're presenting ideas. But let's backtrack for a bit, and I have a fun question for you guys. What's the value proposition of consulting, as in general, not the strategy consulting, but consulting in general? When you think, what does a consultant bring to the table? What's the value proposition? What are your thoughts?
New ideas.
Good stuff. Absolutely, new ideas. What else?
I tend to think it's problem solving.
Problem solving, absolutely. That goes hand to hand with new ideas. Hopefully you are solving problems with new ideas. So that's awesome. Anybody else? I take one more before I give you my take on their answer. By no means the right one.
Communicating with clients. Well,
Client communications. Yeah, absolutely. So it's interesting because if you look at the core of it, consulting is in the business of outsourcing brain power. So the client is coming to you as a consultant because they want to solve a problem and they don't think that they have the brain power, or they need a diverse kind of like set of eyes and opinions to look at the problem. A lot of the frustration with consulting comes into when you're a very hands-on type of person that you want to see your projects and your ideas come to life. That's frustrating because a lot of the time you will present research and alternatives and project plans to the client, and the client is going to say, this is great, but we're not going to do it. And there's not much in your power you can do in that sense. Hopefully, if you did things well, you walk the client through a journey of discovering the answer to their questions, and things are going to materialize. And we were discussing the kind of like the advent of functional areas in consulting in MBB and Big Four. It's a lot because of this, because we are already proposing you that, hey, you should come into the 21st century and sell online as part of your business digitalization strategy. Let us help you with that. Kind of like we help on the implementations of the solutions too, not only just on creating the solutions. That's something that we do at Entreflow. Like you come to us and like we'll create a project plan with different softwares that you can implement and different solutions to your workflows and the issues, and we'll absolutely will tell you, let us do that for you. We do have the manpower to implement these systems for you. So going back to Vanessa, it's the fact that, yeah, like the client, it's always right in the sense that they will always have the last word on what gets done and what doesn't. Ideally, if you crafted your client relationships through the years, you will get to a place that they are seeing you as a trusted advisor, and they really value your opinion, and they are not doing this just because the board like told them or demand them that they need a second opinion on a matter. But yeah, like the idea is you're gonna propose ideas and solutions to problems. If those get done or not, it's a little bit outside of your control.
Yeah. Is that something that differs between like MBB and boutique? Because I would imagine like MBB would have bigger names, so maybe the client would trust them more than they trust boutique firms.
Well, it's more about the relationship. And yes, like MBB does have a bigger name by all means. Like if you ask outside of Vancouver or Toronto, who knows Entreflow, there's very little people that does, I'm assuming. But the thing is, nobody's going to pay you to come up with a solution if at least they don't want to consider it. Again, consulting is not an affordable business by any means. So you will see that normally consultants are paid top dollars because you're recruiting top talent, and then that gets cascaded down into the price of consulting. Like MBB, for example, normally they charge something like $150,000 a week for a team of 4 people. So you are paying to get results, and you want to at least hear their opinion on what they want to how they want to propose a solution and the approach to the problem. And the same happens with boutique. Like the people that come to us with a problem, they are paying us very well to come up with a solution. So they expect us to be thorough. And the thing is, in the startup world where we work, people had a lot more inside resources, let's put it this way. So a lot of the work, the people that we work with, we do finance and HR. They don't have finance and HR departments that they can come up with their own solutions. So in a lot of cases, they are a lot more dependent on us than MBB. Like MBB works on Fortune 500. And all of these guys have operations, finance, HR, marketing departments with thousands of people on it. So they probably have internal resources that they can come up with solutions to. Sonia, you had your hand up and I missed that.
No.
Oh, I had my hand up, but you answered my question while you were talking. So it's all good.
There you go. That's just me being a fortune teller and knowing the future. But Vanessa, to your point, yes, like it's common. It's not common to see, but like you see it every couple of projects that there is some sort of resistance, and that's where really the consulting curiosity comes into place. Is if we did all the analysis right and we understand what are the benefits of the path that we are proposing, it's what is the resistance on the client mind and how they are navigating this from a different set of eyes. Because nobody say no because of saying no. They have a reason and they are explaining themselves your solution on a different outcome. Like maybe they are weighing the risk in a different way, or they don't see the potential that you're seeing in the market. So it's really interesting to understand the no and the reasons behind that. And that kind of like normally opens up the bigger picture of what else you got to look at in consulting. Natasha, you got your hands up.
Yeah. So I was just wondering about the application process for boutique consulting. So is there any like several rounds of behavioral interviews or case interviews that we have to prepare if we want to apply?
Good questions. I will answer that question in a bit when we go into different functional, different career paths into consulting. Okay, let's do that right now. Oh, no, that's day in the life. Okay, after
Thank
this,
you.
I'm going to answer your question, Natasha. So day in the life of a consultant, I think we did touch about this on a couple of cases, but if you look at me, I work in solutions, so I'm solutions consultant. And my day in the life and the day in the life of a lot of the consultants that work for us is that we got a very good split of our day. So normally we start with kind of like what we call cave time, which is your own heads down, working in whatever you need to work, catch up on emails, make phone calls, do whatever you need to do. Nobody's going to bother you on that time. Then normally mornings are for teamwork. So project meetings, internal meetings, developing kind of like ideas or proposals or project plans with other functions. And then the PM, normally you have your lunch, of course, we do it. And the PM is normally for client meetings. So the PMs are normally when we are meeting clients or their lawyers or their other accountants, like we have external meetings. So that's a day in the life of a boutique consulting on our side. And this by no means is the norm. Like every boutique consulting will have a different approach to this. And if you want to know the day in the life of MBB, there is plenty of resources online on explaining what a day in the life of McKinsey is. Oh, I see some chat thingies. Oh no, okay, so just props to the slides to Sophia. She's not here, but Sophia, thank you for the slides. This is recorded, so whenever you see the recording, you will see the thank you. So I wanted to go in and touch base on Natasha's question on the careers. So a couple of career paths getting into consulting. So the first one is a specialized technical area. And I think that this is where CHAM, for example, will be a great fit, is that you have engineer consulting firms or consulting firms that work on infrastructure projects. So you are kind of like mixing those two worlds of the technical area with the business knowledge. You're not just a great engineer, you're an engineer with a business mindset and business focus. We can look at the big picture too. So that's the first one. In our case, for example, it's accountants. Like we got accountants that are not only great at crunching numbers, they are great at thinking of your business, what are your business needs, how are we going to grow the business, and what's the accounting and finance complexity of growing a business. Same with HR. So that's the specialized area, a specialized technical area or function. That's kind of like the first career path that you can look into consulting. And to answer your question, Natasha, this is where things might get technical interviews. So you're always going to have some sort of kind of like behavioral interview with the typical questions. We don't do normally case interviews, or at least Entreflow doesn't. I kind of speak for every consulting firm out there. But in these technical areas, for example, if we are hiring an accountant for or finance practice, we will have a technical interview with our senior accountants or accounting practice manager to go through things. So this is where it's very normal to have that kind of like technicity coming along. And the rounds are, again, this is by no means cookie cutter, because every consulting firm out there in the boutique world is very different. For all of the homogeneity that you have on MBB, where you have kind of like same levels, same kind of like in or out, 5 and 2 schedule, the boutique world is all over the place because it's infinite amount of possibilities depending on the boutique firms. That's what I think I was telling Sonia, is that you really need to find a boutique consulting firm that fits your profile and the area that you like to work on, more than a one size fits all type of like MBB. Okay, so that's the first technical area, the first career path, the technical area. The second one is solutions, and this is the ones that I do. And fun enough, really what solutions consulting is, it's sales. It's you are the first line for potential clients and current clients looking for help on different projects. So if you ask me, what do? I listen to clients' problems. That's probably 70% of my day. It's understanding and digging really into what are the problems, what are the pains, and what's the mountain that we're trying to climb, essentially. What does success look like? What are the boundaries of the scope and the constrictions of the model that we're trying to propose? And then I turn that into a project plan. And I work with the internal team to make sure that this project plan is actually doable, deliverable with all resources. I scope that out, I budget that out, I negotiate with the client, and I kick a project off, if the client signs off, of course. And then I remain kind of like an account executive, and in my case, a / project manager, where I oversee the development of these engagements. But that's sales, like, and this is a very different thing to a lot of consulting firms out there, because MBB, for example, nobody ever talks about sales in consulting, but someone is selling something all the time. Like whatever you work on, you're always selling, either your services or yourself or your knowledge. And in consulting firms and Big Four, normally the senior partners or the partners or management, it's the one doing the selling. So normally that's where the relationships with the CEOs or the CFOs or the C-suite level, it's held. So it's your, I don't know, your EY partner that knows the CEO of the client. And that's where all the conversations are happening. And then it cascades down in the approval from both sides on the scope and the budget and the requirements and the involvement of the consultants on the day-to-day. In our case, we approach that in a different way. We don't have our partners doing any of the client account management type of thing. I'm doing it. So that's an interesting take. And there's a lot of solutions consulting that goes on into a lot of startups, for example, where this is taking a lot of, it's becoming a little bit more hype to say solutions consultant than sell your sales development representatives or your business development representative, because really what you're doing is you are consulting on what are the potential solutions of the problem, and then you are creating a project to work on that. So that's that. That's kind of like the second way you can get into boutique. The third way, it's by all means project management. Any engagement that you see in the world, any consulting firm, any project that you see there needs a project manager, either formalized or informalized. Maybe some people call in engagement managers like McKinsey. Some other people will call them practice leaders or something. So there's always need to be a function of project management. Some consulting firms formalize it as project managers for engagement. So you are essentially managing a couple of engagements or 3-5 engagements at the same time. Or maybe they just have functional managers managing different projects in that function. So that's our case, for example. In our case, it's our senior accountants that own the project. So they do the project management, they do the scheduling, they do the Gantt charts, they manage the kind of like the life cycle of the project and making things happen. So this is another very interesting one that can get you into boutique consulting. And really all of this, it's my experience and my exposure to consulting. The reality is that you got to craft your own path. And this is when I wanted to tell you a little bit more of how I got to Entreflow and what really helped me get into this particular role. And it's a combination of 4 things, really. So the first one is that this is management consulting, and I wanted to get back in management consulting since I left that consulting firm in Argentina. I really like the solution part of things, like working on understanding the problems and proposing solutions. So that was my first box. The second box for me was the clientele. These guys work on startups, and I had my own startups in the past. I'm very attached to the whole startup community and the startup environment and movement. And I wanted to get back into that a lot more since I moved here. So that was my second checkbox. The third one was that they were a boutique firm, so they were small, and that's all that I wanted, coming from a couple of experiences. I work at Accenture and a British American Tobacco, so like big tens of thousands of people companies, and I wanted to get into more of a hands-on experience where there is really no boundaries to what I can propose and what I can do. It really depends on me. More of an entrepreneurial experience, if you want. So that was the third thing there. And the fourth box, which is by no means the less important one, was that it was a solutions role. It was a sales role. So I was coming from commercial roles in a couple of other organizations, and I really want to maintain that kind of like variable salary, talking to a lot of people and building relationship with clients aspect in my life. So going back to what I was telling Sonia a bit ago, is that really for me, they found me really, but this was the whole checkbox for me. Like, you have all of these 4 things that made a lot of sense in my mind. So I know that if I go into McKinsey, I'm not going to check those boxes. And now I have an extra box, which is my family. It's not just me and my wife. We also have a kid in the way, so we also have to have that kind of like work-life balance aspect into it. Which in my 20s, I was kind of like, I'm gonna work as much as needed. Like, this is my career. This is what I wanna invest in. But now I really look at, well, is this gonna make sense on the bigger picture of my work-life balance? And that's what I mean to craft your own path. Make sure that you are exploring your interests and you are true to yourself. We were early on with David and Rebecca. We were chatting with Samson, a cohort member of us, and he was telling that he actually dropped out of med school to go be a lawyer, and that's crazy. But that's just a great example of he was following what his passions were, and he was always reflecting on what he wanted really, and not what the life was imposing on you, or what was kind of like the expected career path that you should take after your undergrad or your master's or whatever. So if you can take any reflection out of all of this nonsense that I've been talking for the last, wow, too long minutes, is that craft your own path. Make sure that you are developing things that you think are interested, and you create a career out of that. There is a consulting firm out there for you that is going to take you for how weird and special you are and all of your quirky things that you have. So by no means try to hide that, just bring that to the forefront. And that's what makes you special on your functions and interests, in your hobbies. All that makes you unique. And boutique consulting is really kind of like a unique experience depending on the consulting firm. So that's that. I just realized that we're way over time. David, I'm gonna look at you and say, why didn't you let me know that we're kind of like killing time here? But
you were on a roll. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so this is what I was questions, and I promise this is the second to last slide. The next one says thank you, so you're not losing much. So I just want to open it up, guys, and let you guys ask any questions about what I discussed, or hopefully about something that I haven't discussed and you want to know more about. But yeah, no, like take it away. The floor is yours, guys.
I have a question, Jose. Since you're the one that got me interested in consulting.
That's true. I'm sorry.
It is actually. How much like learning on the job are you still doing? I imagine in the beginning, there's a steep learning curve. Are you still finding that it's like 20% of your day is learning new things?
20% of the day, it's a big number. I will say that probably 10 to 15 it's accurate. Some days way more than others. Some days are 100% learning. But for me, it really comes with the diversity of clients or potential clients that I get to know on a daily basis. So some or consultants doing the actual job, they are on a smaller set of clients. They're working on 5, 6, 7 clients at a time. I oversee 40 of them. And more are coming all the time. So there's a lot of variability and diversity happening all the time. So there's always something to be learned. For example, not like this is just a tangent. Like 2 days ago, I was talking with one of our clients that runs they are a corporation of doctors that sell their services to a hospital. And they are working on, what was it? Oh, anesthesia. And we were chatting about like the new developments on anesthesia and how like 6 months ago, there was this groundbreaking study that found what are the receptors of general anesthesia actually, and how we can tailor anesthesia to now understand, because it seems that, and this is new to me, up till 6 months ago, it was kind of a gamble how much anesthesia anybody needed. You can like the weight and the height and like family history, but you never knew if someone's gonna wake up with general anesthesia type of thing. But now we actually found the receptors. It's just an example of weird things that I learned on the job. So yes, as long as you're curious, like possibilities are endless, and you can learn a lot on the job.
Thank you.
Vanessa.
Yeah, are most of your work project-based, or do you cooperate with clients for like a couple of years?
Beautiful questions. In my case, particularly, 60% of my work it's ongoing clients. So clients that hire us on retainer and we work with them ongoing. And 40% of my work is project. So it's kind of like 6-7 weeks of engagement in or out. Like we come in, we implement a solution or a system, and we're out. We come in, we devise a project plan for a new market strategy, and we're out. We create a financial model, and we're out, type of thing. So 60-40, 60% ongoing, 40% project work.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. Natasha.
Yep. So you mentioned about how some people usually started their career in MBB or Big Four and then moving into boutique firms. But what about the other way around? What do these MBB or Big Four companies see and someone coming from a boutique firm?
Interesting question. So the one thing that I will say is that you come from a very interesting experience, and coming to that specialization bucket that we were discussing on boutique consulting, it's normally specialized. You come with a craft pass already. So normally it's that expertise that they were going to look at. And that's why you will see that MBB started to hire a lot of engineers, a lot of doctors, a lot of physicians, like people that study physics, like a lot more diverse background than just bachelor's in commerce, MBA. Why? Because they are actually increasing their portfolio functionalities with the richness of your experience. So that's the take that I will say about that. Is like you probably come up with a diverse set of experiences that is pretty unique. And if there is an opening for MBB, that's what they are going to appreciate. The only thing that it's a little bit tougher on going the other way around. So like we discussed MBB to boutique. We didn't discuss much about boutique to MBB. It's probably on the work-life balance for once, and the other one will be on the pay side. So if you Google it, it's very straightforward. BA on MBB makes something like $75,000 a year, and an associate makes it, I think in Canada they are 120, and the States 150 or something like that. So depending how far along you're in your consulting career on the boutique side, you might be taking a pay cut to get into the MBB race, if you want to call it. Sihan.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. Like I'm now even more excited about consulting than before the presentation. So yeah, that was amazing.
Awesome.
My question is actually about the culture. Like I imagine in boutique firms, it's more like friendly, family-like environment versus
it's
rigid,
really
very
like that.
structured. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I like, again, I don't have much experience beside a couple of friends that I know on the MBB. So I will talk about the Entreflow culture, and we are very much kind of like a fun, kind of like informal culture where we're having fun. We like have trivia night every couple of nights. It's really relaxed and easygoing. I gotta say that sometimes it's hard to strike a balance on how easygoing you want to be. But the truth is that it's very startup like. Like this is people that you consider friends that you will hang out after work with. Because we work for the consulting teams, they work really close together all of the time. Like we subdivide our projects on. We got senior managers that are the leads of the project, and then they have the same team working on all of the projects that they are on. So again, you create these very close relationships, versus the only thing that MBB is, most of the projects tend to be somewhere in the 2 to 6 months, and then you are in a completely different setting. It's very weird that you're going to work 2 projects with the same people on MBB, at least at the beginning. Because again, at the beginning is where you're starting to think on where do you want to go, in which industry function, etc. So you're bouncing around a lot in different industries functions until you find one that you really like.
Hey, thank you for
I
coming.
wanted to show my slide about thank you. Yeah, sure. Let me stop sharing here.